I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade marshmallows. Gluten-free, of course. I know it looks like I have a lot going on, but it's really so fast and so easy to make marshmallows. Who knew it was so easy? And we'll be doing this in about 3 different stages. If you use powdered sugar, you won't have to go the extra step that I do. So I've got 1 cup of honey and 1/2 cup of water. And I'm going to put those over here because we're going to cook those. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. All 3 of these will go in my big pot. And this is a 4-quart pot. If you've seen some of my other videos, this is my candy pot. It's really tall sides, it's really heavy bottom, and I really like that it doesn't have any rivets on the handle. That's just me. But for 1 cup of honey and 1/2 cup of water, you really do need a big pot. In fact, this one, it will bubble up almost to the top. And then I've got a candy thermometer. Whenever you're using a candy thermometer, you don't want the tip of the thermometer to touch the bottom of the pan. That will give you an inaccurate reading. And then I actually have 3 little packages of just plain Knox gelatin. It's unflavored. So those will go in the mixer with another 1/2 cup of water. And when we get to that, I also have 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I've got some, mostly melted butter here and a pastry brush. The very first thing I want to do is make some coconut sugar, powdered sugar. So this is 1 cup of coconut sugar, all in here, and my cornstarch. And then this is just a magic bullet. So I'm just going to mix this up and get it powdered. So then in just a bowl and a strainer, and this is a pretty fine strainer, I'm going to sift my coconut powdered sugar with another 1 cup of cornstarch. When I'm making a glaze with this coconut powdered sugar, I don't worry about sifting it, only because it's going to be dissolved in some liquid or something like that. But for something like this where I really want it to be a fine powder, I will sift it all together. Even though I put this in my little blender, the coconut sugar, it doesn't powder down as fine as I would like it to for something like this, for marshmallows. But I'll show you as soon as I get this all sifted together. You see there are little bits of coconut sugar left over. But I don't want these big chunks in my bowl. I'm just going to whisk together my cornstarch and my coconut powdered sugar. And then I've just got a 9x9 glass pan here. And then I've got 2 strips of parchment paper. And I do have one already kind of fitted in here. But one of the easiest ways that I find to use parchment paper to begin with is take a sheet of parchment paper. Be careful not to tear it. It makes it so much easier to handle. And of course this piece is a little bigger than what we need, so I'm just going to fold over one side here until we get the right measurement. And that actually works out really good. And then I'm going to fit it in with my other parchment paper. And I like to have enough overhang that when our marshmallows are ready to slice, we can just lift it out of the pan very easily. But in order to make our powdered sugar mixture stick to the sides, we do need to butter it. If you're using cooking spray, use that. It would be much easier. So I'm just going to use a little bit of butter here and get all of this pan buttered. All the way up the sides. We'll just sprinkle a little in our pan. And very carefully tip the pan around. Just the same as you would butter and flour for a cake. And if you think this is messy now, just wait till we go to cut them. And I've got a lot of extra here in the bottom that I'm going to dump some of it back into my bowl. But I'm still leaving a pretty generous layer in the bottom. So that looks pretty good. Now set that aside. We're actually done with this until tomorrow. And then I'm going to set our pan aside. Might as well get it ready. You don't have to put it on a cooling rack, but I like to. It seems to help it cool off a little bit faster. I'm going to clean up and then we'll get started on the marshmallows. The next thing I'm going to do is pour in my 3 packages of gelatin in the bowl of my stand mixer. So now that I've got my 3 packages of gelatin in there, I'm going to pour my ½ cup of water on top and just let this gelatin soak in this water. So I make sure that my thermometer is not touching the bottom of the pan, but is pretty close to the bottom. Pour in my ½ cup of water, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and my 1 cup of honey. I'm going to turn this on, about medium high. I'm not going to stir it. I'm not going to do anything to it, but just watch the thermometer for when it reaches 240. And that is the softball stage. And you can see how much this is bubbling up. This is why it's really important to have a much bigger pan than what you think you'll need. And it does settle down a little bit. I'm almost to the softball stage, so I'm going to turn my mixer on low speed. So I'm at the softball stage. Take out your candy thermometer. And with the mixer on low speed, we're going to pour down the side of the pan very slowly, but you want to make sure to go down the side of the pan so it doesn't catch on the whisk and splatter everywhere. So now it's really liquidy. I'm going to go up to about medium speed. Then we'll increase the speed to high and let this whip on high speed until it's really fluffy and the bottom of the bowl is cooled off. Once the bowl of the mixer starts cooling off a little bit and it's getting really thick and fluffy like this, I lift up the whisk to see how fluffy it is. When it's a slow-moving ribbon of marshmallow like this, we can stir in our vanilla on high speed. Now this is where we need to work very quickly. Try to get as much of it off the whisk as you can. And then we'll go right into our prepared pan. And then push it into the corners, the best that you can. Try to smooth out the top the best that you can as well. And there's a lot left here on my spatula. So I'm just going to use the bowl to get a little ball here. And we'll drop it right in to our powdered sugar mixture. And then we'll be able to make a little tiny marshmallow right now. So now we're done. All we have to do is wait at least 6 hours up to 24 hours for this to completely set up. So I just set that aside. Once it cools off to room temperature, I will take another piece of parchment paper just to put over the top, just so nothing falls in it or gets stuck to it or anything like that. So that's ready to go. And now that we've got our little marshmallow in here, I just toss it around in this coconut sugar mixture with the cornstarch. And you can see that it's really not that brown from the coconut sugar. Of course, you can see the coconut sugar on here. And it's really soft. So this is why you really want it to set up. Of course, I suppose if you wanted to make some Rice Krispie treats or something like that, you would stir this mixture into your dry cereal before it has a chance to set up. I haven't done that yet, but I'm really curious about that. This will stay soft for quite a while, but we'll just call this the cook's treat because we don't want to waste any of it. But even just holding it, it's really not staying in a marshmallow shape. Very messy. Tastes just like a marshmallow because it is a marshmallow. It actually tastes like when you roast a marshmallow over a campfire, and if you roast them like I do, where they're black on the outside and really soft on the inside, that's what the texture is. Really soft and gooey and delicious. So now we'll just wait until tomorrow and I'll show you how to cut our marshmallows. So here we are the next day with our marshmallows. The first thing I'm going to do is butter my knife. And after I get it buttered, I'm going to sprinkle some of our coconut powdered sugar on it. And this just makes it easier to cut our marshmallows. If you have cooking spray, use that. And then as I mentioned, this is how I covered it up all night. Which that parchment paper can help us when we go to cut our marshmallows. So now that my knife is buttered, I'm gonna dust my knife with my coconut powdered sugar. I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, but for such a long knife, this works. And one thing about it, this is really messy. So now we'll just lift our marshmallows out of the pan. And this is where we find out how good of a job we did dusting our parchment paper. So far, it's doing really good. There's a couple of sticky spots, but for the most part, it is coming away nicely. Now bring over your other piece of parchment paper. And just to make it so I have better even coverage, I've got my strainer and I'm going to go a spoonful of my powdered sugar and very generously dust the top of my marshmallow with it. And because I've got two different pieces of parchment paper, I can lift up just one piece of it and then I'm going to flip it upside down onto my large piece of parchment paper. And it looks like I did a pretty good job of dusting my marshmallows. You can brush off any excess. I usually just smear it around because there are sticky spots. Let's get this out of the way. And then I can move this onto my cutting board. And I'm also going to dust the spots that need a little bit more. Marshmallows are super sticky. So now you can cut these into however big of pieces that you like. I like to do, an even mix of really little ones and then really big ones. Big ones are really good for, something like a s'mores or roasting over a campfire. And then little ones are good for, whatever you want. Little ones are good for something like, I can't even think of what I want to put marshmallows in. If you wanted to put little marshmallows in a jello salad or something like that. Something where a little marshmallow is needed. Although I will say with homemade marshmallows, they're a lot softer and they seem to melt a little easier. Especially being so fresh. But I'm going to cut in half just to begin with. And then move one aside. And then if you need to, during this process, if you need to get your knife covered again, because I have such a good layer on top, I just dip my knife in the top of that, and then it's coated again. And then we'll go pretty big pieces for this one. And then once I've got the strips that I want, I'll turn them a little bit in the powdered sugar that's on the bottom and help to make them not so sticky. Make sure my knife is going to be nice and coated with sugar. And then I line up my strips and then just start cutting into however big of pieces that you want. And of course my measuring skills, all of my marshmallows are not the same size. And then I can just coat these ones in the powdered sugar as well. Let's see how squishy they are. And then I just make sure that all of the cut sides that are sticky get a nice dusting of powdered sugar. And if you feel like you need some more, and the nice thing is you can't use too much powdered sugar. It will stick to all the sides, and then you can just dust off the excess. But here we go, really big marshmallows. And the very first initial dusting of powdered sugar, when we dusted the parchment paper so they could set up in the pan, this is a little bit thicker of a layer of sugar. Of course, it absorbed into the warm marshmallow mixture, but the bottom side is really soft and smooth. But it still tastes really good. It just might not look exactly like a marshmallow. But I don't mind. So now for the rest of my marshmallows, you see we've got a lot of extra sugar here, which will really be helpful. And I'm just going to pick up the whole thing and make sure it's got a really good dusting. Again, get my knife coated. If you need to add more butter, do that. And then because I want to make these into small ones, I'm really making sure it's coated in this powdered sugar. And you really don't even need a sharp knife. It helps, but you don't really need one. And with these, you can go as big or as little as you want. And because we've already coated all of the cut sides, they're really not sticking very much at all. Who knew homemade marshmallows were so easy? And even though they're so messy, they're so easy. They're so easy to make. They're so easy to work with. They're delicious. They look homemade, which is okay because they are homemade. Some of these ones are kind of long. You could cut them in half. They're your marshmallows. You cut them into however big of pieces that you want. And then what I like to do with the little ones is I just throw them into my bowl. Not all of them, but a little bit. You don't even need the spoon. Hands work the best. And this really helps to get them evenly coated in this powdered sugar mixture. And then with your strainer, fish them out. And then you can really do a good job of shaking off any excess. And then to store these, you can store them in a jar or a Tupperware, something like that that's airtight. And as far as I know, they'll last for at least a month. I don't know the exact time frame. I suppose you could Google it. If you're at my house, they don't last that long because they get eaten before then. But so much fun to make. So simple, so easy. Just really messy. And then all of this extra powdered sugar that is on my parchment paper, I can just put right back into this bowl and use it for something else. And it still surprises me that when you look at it, you think, oh, that's just a 9x9 pan. It doesn't make very many. And of course, if you cut them into really big pieces, that's just 1/2 of it. So if I had cut the other half into really big pieces, of course, I would have double that. You can do math, I'm sure. But plenty. And there's a really good size for a s'mores. If you make my graham crackers, here on my channel I have a recipe for gluten-free graham crackers. If you make a batch of those, make a batch of these marshmallows, you've got almost all of the components for a delicious s'mores. All you need is some chocolate. Onto my plate, maybe I should have used a bowl. There we go, look at that. Homemade marshmallows. So fast and so easy and delicious. And these are just basic vanilla flavored marshmallows. You could flavor these with any flavoring that you want. And for that matter, you could color them with some food coloring and make them pink or blue or whatever color of marshmallow you want. But so delicious. And again, maybe I'm partial to coconut sugar. To me, it doesn't really taste like coconut. And mixed with the cornstarch, you get less of the coconut sugar anyways. So to me, it tastes just like a marshmallow where it's a little powdery and a little bit sweet. My marshmallows are not as sweet as a store-bought marshmallow. Of course, I used honey, I didn't use corn syrup, and there's no sugar. But I actually like them better this way. They're not overly sweet. Soft and squishy, just how a marshmallow should be. Let me know what you think if you make this recipe. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.